All right. So let's just say I give you this question. All right. I gave you two quadratic equation and I ask you to sketch the graph. So number one thing is when you look at the equation, you need to tell me what graph is that. Okay? So over here, the moment you see x squared, that's the indicator to tell you that the graph you are dealing with, it's a quadratic graph. Alright? So you know all these things will apply. It's the U-shaped graph and whatnot. Okay? So the question asked me to sketch. So let's sketch it out. Let's find out how would the graph look like. Now before we sketch, let's identify first. So remember, my value of A, it's over here, all right? My value of B, all right? It's this one. And my value of C, it's this one, all right? So all these things will tell me a lot of things about the graph. So number one, let's check. Now it's x squared, so what's the value of A over here? Always do remember, if you only see an unknown without any number, there is always a 1 hiding behind there. It's always like that. Okay? So see, since the value of A is 1, it's a positive number, so I know that my graph, it will be a smiling graph. Okay? It's going to be a U-shaped graph or a smiling graph. My value of B, it's positive, all right? So I know I'm going to be dealing with a positive gradient at the y-intercept. And the y-intercept over here is going to be positive 6. It's where the line cuts through the y-axis. So with this information, that is sufficient for me to plot my graph. So I will sketch my graph now. So I will draw my axis first. Okay, so this is my x and this is my y. Okay, so it's going to be a smiley face, all right, and it's a positive gradient where the slope, it's cutting the y-intercept at 6, all right, in an upward gradient. So the graph will look something like this. All right, it will look something like this. All right, it's just a sketch. All right, let me do this properly. All right, I think this looks nicer. Okay, so let's check if this is correct or not. Positive U-shape, check. Positive gradient at the y-intercept. This is the area of y-intercept is going upwards. The line is going upwards here to here. All right, and the y-intercept, it's positive 6. So this part over here, it's 6. Okay, so that checks out already. So that's how the graph looks like. Okay, but I'm not done yet. The question also asks me label the y and x-intercept. So from the equation, I know what is my y-intercept. So I'm going to find my x-intercept now. Now, if you all notice in this graph, there are two values of x-intercept. One is here and one is here. Okay? So how do I find the value of my x-intercept for my quadratic graph? Now, always do remember when you are finding x-intercept, all right, it's on the x-axis, which basically means the value of your y-coordinate is always 0. That's how we find x-intercept. You have to make the y-coordinate to become 0. So in another word, how do I do this in my equation here? So I'm going to write this down over here in my red pen. All right, the blue pen. So y equals to 0. So it's going to be 0 equals to x squared plus 5x plus 6. All right. So what am I going to do now? Okay, now this might look familiar to some of you. So how do I find my value of x? Factorize. That's how we find it, factorize. Okay, so let's factorize this. So it's a quadratic equation here, so I can factorize it using the table method. So this is going to be x and x. This is going to be 3 and 2. I will make my table now. So cross multiply them. I will get 3x, and over here I will get 2x, and true enough, both of them add up to 5x, right? So let's check. This is positive 6, this is x squared, correct? So when I factorize this, I can write my equation in such a way. It's going to be x plus 3 and then x plus 2. Now always do remember, when we talk about in this form over here, we can write this is equals to 0 and this bracket is equal to 0. So I can write as x plus 3 is equals to 0, or x plus 2 is equals to 0. And we can find the value of x from over here. Okay? Alright, why these two can become 0? Do always again remember 2x intercept. Can you see that? And both of these x-intercept, my y values are 0. That's why we can do that. Okay, so over here we can just solve this. X is equals to negative 3 or x is equals to negative 2. And does this match with my sketch? Both of the x-intercept are negative values. And coincidentally, my graph shows me the negative value of the x-axis. So over here, I know that's my negative 3, and over here, I know that's my negative 2, and that's my x-intercept over there. Okay? So that's my answer here. Alright, so I will do over here now. So let's see what's gonna happen. Alright, so same thing, let's sketch. But before we sketch, let's identify what can we get from the graphs. Okay, so over here from this side, okay, we see the value of a squared, which is represented by this negative 2. It's negative, so we know it's going to be a sad face. Alright, let's draw our sad face over there. That's a negative gradient, so I know it is a downward slope that is cutting through the y-intercept at positive 8. Okay, so this is sufficient information for me to sketch my graph. So I'm just gonna draw my axis again. Now for those of you, if you would like to try, you can feel free to pause the video and try to sketch, and then you can check my answer. Alright, so if I were to sketch this out, this will look something like this. Alright, this will look something like this. Okay, let's check. Sad face, clear. Negative gradient at the y-intercept. So again, this is my y-intercept zone. You can see the line is going downwards. That's a negative gradient, check. Cuts through the positive part of the y-intercept, the y-axis, sorry, which is 8. Clear, done. Alright, that's how my graph looks like. Okay, so again, y-intercept is given to you from the graph. That's simple. And how do I find my x-intercept? Same thing. Make the value of y to become 0. Remember, your x-intercept is on the x-axis. And when any point is on the x-axis, the y value is always 0. That's why we have to make the equation to become 0. So my equation will look something like this now. 0 is equals to negative 2x squared minus 6x plus 8. How do we find the value of x? Factorize. So it's a quadratic equation, so I can factorize it using the table method again, same like this. So let's do this now. So what I do? Now always remember, whenever we are dealing with negative numbers, ignore the negative value. The negative value will come out by itself, alright? So just treat this as positive first, okay, and that's how I like to do it. So let's see what's going to happen. So I will get 2x and x, alright, and over here 2 and 4. Let's see what's going to happen now. Okay, so I will cross multiply, zoom over here and over here. So this multiply with this, that will give me 2x. This multiply with this, that will give me 8x. Alright, and the value I'm interested in is negative 6x. Now what should I do with these numbers to make this -6? So what I should do is I should put the negative sign over here, correct? Because 2 minus 8, that will give me -6. If this is minus, so trace back, over here, this over here should be minus. I can't put minus over here because 2 multiplied by -4 is not +8. So be careful with that. Alright, the negative is supposed to be here because the negative value is from here. Alright, so check. This indeed will give me -2x squared. This and this will give me 8. Alright, I'm done factorizing. I can write my factorized equation now, so I will get this. Okay, so again, this point, alright, these 2 points over here, it's either here and here. So remember, the y value is always 0. That's why we can write like this. So I can write as -2x plus 2 is equals to 0, or x plus 4 is equals to 0. Now we can solve this very quickly. Move the plus 2 over here. That will give me -2. Alright, -2. So I will get -2x is equals to -2, and that will give me x is equals to 1 over here. Alright. Okay, or over here. So you can solve this, so x equals to -4. So I'm done in finding my x value. And let's plot these 2 points on my graph. So again, +1, right? Looks right, right? It's over here. And -4, that is over here. And you look, even before you find your x-intercept, even from the graph, when you sketch out, it will tell you where it is already. Okay, so it will look something like this. Okay, all right. Now, actually, I have one more over here, so I'm just going to erase this part. All right. Now, I'm just going to give you one equation, like what if we don't have a b value, all right? What will happen? What do you think will happen? Okay. Now again, for those of you who are interested, you can always use the Desmos graphing calculator to play with it and to make your equation where you don't have a b value, like the middle value over here. What do you think will happen to the graph? How will the graph look like? Now, last question over here. Let's just say I have y is equals to x squared minus 4. All right? Okay? So again, let's do this. So what will happen over here? So I know this is a smiling face because I know there's a 1 hiding behind here, there's a positive number. And this -4 is telling me the y-intercept. The y-intercept, okay? But there's no b value, so how would the graph looks like now? Okay, so I'm going to sketch out over here to show you how the graph looks like. Okay, so this x and y. So the graph will look like this. So let me just sketch this out. Alright, basically the graph will just look like this. And okay, let me draw properly. So because there's one thing I want to emphasize later. Let me try this. Alright, let's look. Good enough. Okay, so this is how the graph of x squared minus 4 look like. Again, I want to label my y-intercept. So this is my -4. Alright. Now, I want to talk about this graph. How is this different from these two over here? Now, I want to introduce a new term in a quadratic graph. Now, if you notice in a quadratic graph, we have a point, right? Like the tip of the parabola graph. Like in this case, it's over here. Alright, it's over here. Right? Like in this case, it's over here. There's a tip. In this case, it's over here. Okay? Now, this tip, there's a name, all right? We call this tip the vertex point. The vertex point, okay? The tip over there is called the vertex point. Now, so a very simple example over here, when you do not have the value of b, in another word, when b is equal to 0, the vertex point will be always on the y-axis. All right, so I'm going to make a note over here so that you know. So if no b value, all right, in quadratic equation, the vertex point will be always on the y-axis. All right, always remember this. Now take a look over here. There's some value, the vertex point is away from the y-axis. There's some value, the vertex point is away. Now this makes sense because remember what does b says? B is the gradient at the y-intercept. Now look at this zone over here, like this zone. Now this is U-shape. What's the gradient? There's none. All right, because if I make the value of a to become 0, this blue line will become a horizontal line. There's no gradient. And how do we represent that in a quadratic graph? We can show it by having the vertex point on the y-axis. Always remember that. Okay, always remember that. Now I'm not done over here. Over here, I still need to find my x-intercept, and I can just do that very fast. So there are two ways you can do. So my equation is y is equals to x squared minus 4. All right. Now remember, I want to find my y-intercept. So my y value over here, it's always 0. All right, it's always 0. Okay. Now how do I solve this? There are two ways. Either you want to solve it using the algebraic way, or do you notice that this is difference of square? So I'm going to show you two ways how to do it. First, let me show you difference of square. All right, so 0 is going to be, this is the difference of square. So difference of square, very simple. 2 brackets, 1 plus, 1 minus. Square root of this will give you x and x. Square root of 4 will give you 2 and 2. Okay, so over here, so x plus 2 is equals to 0, or x minus 2 is equals to 0. So x is basically 2, or x is negative 2 over here, or x is positive 2, and which makes sense. So this is positive 2, this is negative 2 over here. Okay, all right, or you can solve it using an algebraic method. So 0 equals to x squared minus 4. I can put 4 over here. So this will give me 4 equals to x squared. All right. So square root over there. So square root of 4 is equals to x. But do remember, we are not dealing with an area over here. All right. We are just dealing with all possible value of x that will give you 0 over here. So do remember, when you square root, add the plus minus. All right. So x is going to equals to plus minus 2, which is the same as this over here. Okay, so that is how we sketch the graph over here based on the equation, and that's how we find the x-intercept by utilizing factorization. Okay.